Imagine coming to the end of a wild festival weekend on Tenerife. Sunburned, sleep-deprived, with music still thumping in your ears, and then, suddenly, you vanish without a trace. That's precisely what happened to Jay Slater, a 19-year-old from Lancashire, in June 2024. Jay, fresh off the 3-day NRG festival, was last seen alive after leaving with 2 men he'd met at the event. At first, his friends didn't sense any distress. He even messaged that he planned to stay with these strangers. But just hours later, he was gone, igniting a mystery that would grip the UK and fuel rampant online speculation. Now, you might be thinking, how does a simple night of partying spiral into one of Britain's most heated missing persons cases? Let's retrace those crucial hours, step by step, and see where fact and rumor collided. Let me tell you, this case isn't just about one lost young man. It's about the feverish swirl of social media, the dark pull of conspiracy, and the heartbreak of a family under the harshest spotlight imaginable. Buckle up, because Jay's last night out was just the beginning of a story that would twist through suspicion, rumor, and ultimately, tragedy. Tenerife, the island of eternal spring, is a magnet for British holidaymakers. Lush palm groves, volcanic peaks, and a nightlife as electric as the Atlantic storms rumbling offshore. But beneath the postcard perfection lies a reality many tourists never see. The terrain, for one, is treacherous. The Tenno Nature Reserve, where Jay would vanish, is a labyrinth of ravines and jagged cliffs, terrain navigable only by seasoned hikers, not sunburnt festival goers nursing a hangover. Here's where 2 technical terms come in. Orographic lift, that's when moist air rises over mountains, causing sudden fog and thermal stress, which can strike unprepared walkers under the merciless Spanish Sunday. So, why would anyone, let alone a teenager, likely still feeling the after effects of club drugs, attempt an 11-hour trek through this wild landscape? Was it bravado, fear, or something darker? That's the question that haunts this case. Maybe you've been on a holiday like this, lured by the promise of endless party nights, not realizing how close paradise sits to peril. Jay's journey from clubland to catastrophe is a warning. The line between adventure and disaster is often paper thin. Let's pause. Before he was a headline, Jay Dean Slater was someone's son, brother, and friend. Born in April 2005, raised in Oswaldwistle, Lancashire, a working-class town, with a crime rate that often overshadows the warmth of its tight-knit communities. Jay's early life? Ordinary, even wholesome. He was obsessed with Manchester United, played for local youth teams, and was remembered as a massive personality, always surrounded by mates and laughter. But like many, Jay found himself pulled into sketchier circles as a teen. The tabloids fixated on his brush with the law, a violent disorder charge at 16, stemming from a group attack. Now, you might be tempted to judge, but ask yourself, how many of us have friends who drifted the wrong way, even if just for a season? His family insisted he was more bystander than ringleader, and their outpourings on social media paint a portrait of a beloved son, not a villain. The duality public condemnation versus private affection is at the heart of why this case gripped and divided a nation. So, who was Jay Slater? A complicated, contradictory figure like so many young men, defined not just by his worst moment, but by every moment in between. August 2021, Jay is 16. He's caught up in an ugly attack on another teen, an incident involving machetes and an abandoned paper mill. The press would later call it a pack assault, conjuring images of feral youth gangs and urban decay. The technical terms here, violent disorder and community order, sound dry. But for Jay, they meant hours of unpaid work, a criminal record, and a stigma that would follow him across borders. Now, you might be thinking, doesn't this change how we see his later disappearance? That's the trap so many fell into, erasing the complexities of adolescence for the simplicity of retribution. But the truth, as always, is messier. Jay's mother insisted he was merely present, not an active assailant. The judge, meanwhile, lamented the group's lack of remorse, even as he acknowledged their youth. Did this past make Jay more vulnerable, or just more likely to be judged harshly? Let me be clear. No one's worst mistake should be a death sentence. And yet, for many online, what followed was seen not as tragedy, but twisted karmic justice. June 2024, Jay flies to Tenerife with 2 friends, Lucy and Bradley, for the NRG Festival, a whirlwind of multi-venue electro madness, as the flyers promised. Picture it: sun, sweat, and 70. 2 hours of thumping bass. NRG is legendary among young Brits for its heady mix of hedonism and freedom. The technical term here? Polydrug use. Mixing substances like MDMA, alcohol, and cocaine. A dangerous cocktail for judgment and memory alike. Jay was seen gurning in videos, laughing with friends, and according to later toxicology, deeply intoxicated. But who among us didn't push the limits on our first real holiday? It's easy to see why the festival scene exerts such pull community. Release, the suspension of ordinary rules. But in Jay's case, those blurred boundaries would soon become a matter of life and death. Was this just a coming-of-age adventure gone wrong, or was it the perfect cover for something more sinister? That's the question that would fuel months of speculation. The night of June 16th turned chaotic. Jay was seen stumbling, slurring, and disappearing from bars. His friends lost track of him more than once, a classic case of fragmented group dynamics at play on a wild night out. Toxicology later revealed MDMA, ketamine, and cocaine in his system. For context, these substances can fuel paranoia, dehydration, and impulsivity, especially in combination. Now you might ask, how does a lad go from the heart of Party Central to a remote Airbnb in the mountains with two near strangers? Some say Jay needed to escape the scene quickly. Rumors of a stolen luxury watch swirled, and he even joked about it on Snapchat. His own words, "just took a 12K rollie off some guy," were never substantiated. But in the blurry, adrenaline-fueled logic of the night, anything seemed possible. Did he really steal a watch? Or was it just a drunken boast? That decision to leave with those men set in motion a chain of events that still feels inexplicable. Was it fear, bravado, or just a terrible case of trusting the wrong people at the wrong moment? Jay, Ob, and Steven arrive at an Airbnb in the remote village of Masca, an hour's drive from the Strip and a world away from safety. Early morning, surreal. Jay Snapchats panoramic mountain views, puffing on a cigarette, joking with his new companions. The term executive dysfunction comes to mind when substance use or stress undermines your ability to make rational choices. Jay's phone battery is almost dead. He's disoriented, thirsty, and possibly still high. Now, you might ask, why not just wait for the bus? A local woman, Oilia Hernandez, even told him it would come at 10 a.m. But Jay ignored the advice, striking out on foot toward disaster. Was he running from something at the Airbnb, or simply too confused to wait? His friends would later recall him saying, "I can't go back there," a cryptic line that would feed endless conspiracy theories. In that moment, the line between a bad hangover and mortal danger blurred, leaving Jay alone in unforgiving terrain, with no map, no water, and only 1% battery left to call for help. 8:21 a.m. Jay starts calling friends, voice strained with desperation. "I'm lost in the mountains. I need water. My phone's on 1%. He tells Lucy Law he's cut by a cactus, asks if they're poisonous, and insists he can't return to the Airbnb. Here's where triangulation comes in, a technical process where police use phone pings to determine a user's last known location. Jay's final signal places him in the Tenno Nature Reserve, a wilderness infamous for steep ravines and sudden weather shifts. Lucy begs him to turn back, but the call drops. In minutes, his lifeline to the outside world is severed forever. The only clue, his insistence that he couldn't or wouldn't go back. Hypothetical dialogue. Why not just retrace your steps, Jay? What's so terrifying about going back? In the absence of answers, suspicion takes root, and the internet fills the void. It's here that Jay's story shifts from a private calamity to a public obsession. Every detail, every broken call, became fodder for theories both plausible and wild. By 9:04 a.m., Jay is officially reported missing. What follows is a massive operation. Mountain rescue teams deploy, drones and sniffer dogs scour the ravines, and helicopters buzz the cliffs. Geospatial analysis, using computerized maps to predict movement and hazard, is in full swing. Yet, despite hundreds joining the hunt, days pass with no sign of Jay. The technical challenge? Heatstroke and dehydration can cripple even experienced hikers in hours. For someone disoriented and unprepared, time is the enemy. Meanwhile, back home, the search takes on a digital life. Social media groups balloon with armchair detectives and trolls alike. Some offer genuine help. Others spin wild tales about gangland hits or international abductions. Now, let me ask, have you ever watched the internet latch onto a tragedy and twist it beyond recognition? Jay's disappearance becomes a mirror for our era. Empathy colliding with schadenfreude. Fact drowned by noise. What was once a search for a missing boy becomes a spectacle, a test of law enforcement, technology, and the dark pull of collective obsession. As the days tick by, the online maelstrom intensifies. Facebook groups, true crime forums, and TikTokers descend on the case, each claiming to know what really happened. Technical term confirmation bias, the psychological tendency to favor information that reinforces your pre-existing beliefs. In Jay's case, it meant that rumors about his criminal past and the supposed stolen watch became gospel for some. Armchair detectives accused friends, family, and even strangers of complicity. The GoFundMe set up for search expenses was branded a scam by skeptics. Innocent gestures like Lucy Law's press interviews were scrutinized for imagined deception. Now, you might be thinking, why do people act this way? The anonymity and reach of the internet create a digital mob mentality where outrage and suspicion spread faster than facts. Jay's family, already grieving, found themselves targets of abuse and wild accusations. It's a cruel irony. In our quest to solve mysteries, we sometimes create new victims. 29 days after Jay vanished, searchers found human remains in a ravine near where his phone last pinged. The body's location, near impossible to access by foot, required helicopters for recovery. The technical terms, DNA fingerprinting, confirmed identity, while blunt force trauma was cited as the primary cause of death. The coroner concluded Jay likely fell 60 feet, suffering fatal fractures to his skull and pelvis. No signs of assault or restraint. No evidence of third-party involvement. Officially, an accident caused by a drunken, dehydrated, and possibly panicked young man lost in hostile wilderness. But here's the conflict. For many, the lack of witnesses and Jay's cryptic phone calls left the door wide open for doubt. Was it really an accident, or did something more sinister happen in those mountains? Let me tell you, a clean forensic report doesn't always clean the wound. For Jay's loved ones and a nation hooked on mystery, closure remains elusive. Jay's death unleashed a tidal wave of conflicting emotions. Some mourned a lost youth, others scorned him for his past, blaming him for his own fate. The technical term, victim blaming, took on new life in comment sections and tabloid headlines. Now you might ask, why does society turn so quickly from sympathy to scorn? In part, it's a defense mechanism. If we convince ourselves Jay made fatal choices, we can believe we're safe from similar fates. Jay's family, meanwhile, became collateral damage. His brother Zach and his parents waded through abuse, conspiracy, and an endless churn of media requests. Even their motives for fundraising and media engagement were questioned. Let me tell you a story. When the victim of Jay's earlier assault, Tom Hilton, saw his own name pulled into the circus, he posted online, urging people to show respect and focus on finding Jay. It was a rare moment of dignity amid chaos. The lesson? In the digital age, tragedy no longer unfolds in private. Every stumble, every rumor is amplified until real people are buried beneath the noise. The inquest ruled Jay's death accidental, citing evidence of a fatal fall and the absence of third-party involvement. Yet, for many, suspicion lingered, fueled by gaps in the timeline and the police's decision to close the case. Technical term, Occam's razor, the principle that the simplest explanation is usually correct. But in the age of social media, simplicity is often drowned by complexity and doubt. Jay's funeral was attended by 500 mourners, a sea of blue honoring his memory. His father later launched a TikTok account, both to document their search and plead for an end to conspiracy theories. Now you might wonder, will we ever know what really happened? Or will Jay's story become just another unsolved puzzle for the internet to obsess over? In the end, what remains is grief and the unanswered ache of what if. For every mystery solved, 100 are spun anew, each feeding the digital shadows, where stories like Jay's never truly end. So what can we learn from Jay Slater's tragic odyssey? First, that youth and risk are an explosive mix. especially in unfamiliar hazardous environments. Risk perception, the technical term for how we judge danger, is notoriously unreliable at 19, and doubly so when drugs and drink are involved. Second, that the internet is a double-edged sword. It can mobilize help, but also magnify suspicion, scorn, and cruelty. The very tools we use for solidarity can turn into weapons of emotional harm. Third, that families in crisis deserve compassion, not judgment. If you've ever lost someone or waited in dread for news, you know how thin the thread of hope can be. Now maybe you're thinking, would I have done anything differently if I were Jay or his friends or his family? That's the hardest question of all. Hindsight is a luxury the missing and their loved ones never have. Let's remember, behind every viral headline lies a real life. And behind every real life, a story that deserves more than clickbait and condemnation. Despite the coroner's report and the passage of time, Jay Slater's case endures in the public imagination. Maybe it's the drama of youth cut short, or the allure of an unsolved riddle. Technical terms like parasocial relationships, our tendency to feel connected to strangers through media help explain why so many became invested in Jay's fate. As new missing persons cases emerge and old ones resurface, we're left to wonder, is the internet helping us find answers? Or are we simply feeding a cycle of anxiety and outrage? Let me leave you with this. Jay Slater was the third most searched topic in the UK in 2024, a dubious honor for a boy whose only mistake may have been trusting the wrong people or believing he could find his way home. His story is a reminder, equal parts cautionary tale and tragedy, of how thin the veil is between ordinary life and extraordinary misfortune.